Okay, now if you think about it, um, even if we did invoke the 25th Amendment, it won't save us from a rated out fat ass 45. When the fat ass's COVID-19 diagnosis was acknowledged, there was naturally a lot of interest in what would happen if he were to become so ill that he was incapacitated to do his job, even for temporarily. At the time, people wrote about the three incidents in which two presidents, Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush, invoked Section 3 of the 25th Amendment upon undertaking surgical procedures and made George H.W. Bush and Dick Cheney, respectively, acting president of the United States for only very briefly. This remains an option for Fat Ass 45 if he finds that he's no longer able and doing well as he currently claims. But with the fat ass seeming to act as his own cheap physician and conducting such odd stunts as his SUV motorcade around Walter Reed Medical Center not long before he succeeded in obtaining a discharge following a disturbingly brief hospitalization. Inquiring minds are beginning to wonder about Section 4 of the 25th Amendment. Section 4 involves involuntary measures to declare the fat incapacitated. Here's the first paragraph. Whenever the vice president and the majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide transmit to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. The vice president shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting president. That possibility is beginning to circulate in part due to the fat ass's rather odd conduct since entering Walter Reed, and in part because of concerns about the possible psychological impact of the treatment he is continuing to receive, as former Solicitor General Neil Katyal notes. I'd be shocked if anyone expects Fat Ass 45 to call for his own temporarily removal from office for emotional instability, and as the second paragraph of Section 4 of the 25th Amendment makes clear, he can almost definitely get in the way of Pence pushing him aside. Or the dumbass Pence, anyway. When the when the fat ass transmits to the transmits to the squatter pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration um, that no inability exists, he shall resume the powers and duties of his office, unless the vice president and the majority of either the principal officers of the executive department or of such other body as Congress may by law provide transmit within 4 days to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. Thereupon Congress shall decide the issue, assembling within 48 hours for that purpose, if not in session. If the Congress, within 21 days after receipt of the latter written declaration, or if Congress is not in session, within 21 days after Congress is required to assemble, it determines by two-thirds vote of both houses that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, and the vice president shall continue to discharge the same as acting president. Otherwise, the president shall resume the powers and duties of the office. So only dumbass Pence can trigger involuntary removal of Fat Ass 45's powers, and even if he does, and Fat Ass 45 challenges the maneuver, dumbass Pence would have to muster the support of a majority of the cabinet and a supermajority in both houses of Congress to pull this off. To summarize, the fat ass and vice squatter have an absolute monopoly on initiating the 25th Amendment. This is a fat ass who has set an extremely high bar for presidential behavior, B, previously considered aberrant, and B, cannot admit he's made mistakes or told lies, much less that this latest lie-encrusted mistake incapacitates him and reinforces the most important Democratic talking point for rejecting him in November. And this is a vice squatter who A, has made egregious sycophancy his signature, and B, owes his own presidential hopes almost entirely to maggot support for him as Fat Ass 25's successor in waiting. Sure, if the fat ass is fully laid low by COVID-19 and cannot function at all, then Fat Ass 25's nutlickers might beg dumbass Pence to step in as acting president and as the GOP candidate for squatter. Though this latter maneuver is complicated since ballots have already been printed and voters are voting. Short of that, the chief narcissist and and Chief Sycophant aren't likely to make a move at all. But if you like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, Randman Mike, and also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out, and thanks for listening.